Thank you, veterans, for your service. Everyone appreciates your braveness, strength, and your will to defend the freedom and rights of our country.
I would like to thank my grandfather for fighting in the Vietnam. He was a RTO, which stands for a radio telephone operator. Thank you for fighting for the U.S.
Paul Reinhardt, a helicopter pilot from the Navy since 1994.
Thank you for your service.
I'd like to thank my godfather, Jeff Legue, for serving in the Armed Forces for 20 years.
I'd like to thank my cousin Timmy for serving in the U.S. Marine Corps for 2 years in Afghanistan, 2013 and 2014.
I want to thank Norman, my great-grandfather, for serving in World War II.
The vet I'm thanking is Patrick Bates, my dad. He was a sergeant in the Air Force. He served from 1987 to 1994. He served during Desert Shield and Desert Storm.
I just want to say thanks to Damien Dufour for serving in the Army. He served in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. Thanks for all the time and effort you put into the world, including being a coach and a big-time helper. Thank you so much.
This is Edward Lemieux, or my Uncle Eddie. He served as a sergeant in the Marines during Iraq and Afghanistan from 2003 to 2004. Thank you for your service, Uncle Eddie, and all of you've done for this.
Lieutenant Colonel Todd Clark for serving as a cavalry officer in Iraq and Afghanistan. Thank you for all you have done.
My grandfather was in the Navy and served during the Vietnam War. I would like to thank all of the veterans that have served and are currently serving to protect this country.
I wanted to say thank you to Thomas Tyler Lowell for his service in the Navy during the Vietnam War, and Richard John Davis for his service in the Air Force during the Korean War.
I want to thank my grandfather, Ralph Sargent, for serving in the Korean War.
I would like to thank my great-grandfather, Roland Ryu, for serving in the U.S. Army during World War II.
I'd like to thank my 92-year-old father for serving as a helicopter crew chief in the Marines and Army, both in World War II and in the Korean War. I'd also like to give a shout out to my nephews Joel and Jeremy, who are now serving in the Air Force.
I would like to thank all the veterans who have served, especially the ones who have lost their lives to protect us. I would like to thank my great-grandfather, Fred Ledbetter, for serving in the Korean and Vietnam War.
This here is Jeff. He was a veteran and is now a stepdad to me. He was in the Navy for 15 years and directed helicopters and drove ships. So, thank you for being a hero for our country, thank you for sacrificing yourself for our safety, and thank you for being a part of my life.
I would like to thank my grandfather. He was in the Army and he served in World War II.
I would like to thank my grandfather, Mike Albert, for taking time out of his life to serve for our country in the Vietnam War.
Special veteran I'd like to thank today is my grandfather, John Robertson. He was in the Air Force and the National Guard in the past, and I'd like to thank him and all the veterans out there for working alongside us, and thank you for your long service.
I'd like to thank my Uncle Paul for serving 6 years in the Marines. He was a corporal who fought in the Haiti, Bosnia, and Middle Eastern wars. Thank you for serving our country and protecting our freedom.
This is my grandpa, Robert Swanger. He was in the Vietnam War. He was in the war from 1966 to 1969. He was shot in the back and had shrapnel in his leg and got a disease called malaria, which is a serious disease with chills and fevers from a mosquito, and he was sent to the hospital. We love you, Grandpa, and miss you so much, and can't thank you enough for what you did.
I'd like to thank my dad, Harry W. Rogers, and my brother, Andrew Joseph Rogers, for their service to our country. My dad was in the Korean War and also in Vietnam, 3 different tours, and my brother was in Desert Storm. My dad was also a Golden Glove boxer for the United States Marine Corps, and he won in 48 and 49.
I want to thank everyone who served for our country and sacrificed their lives. I especially want to thank my great-grandfather who served as a nurse in World War II.
Thank you, Uncle Joe, for serving in the Air Force for 4 years. May you rest in peace.
Thank you, Grampy Chaput, for your service in the Army.
This is Alan Elzey. He served in the United States Navy from 1970 to 2000. Thank you for your service.
I would like to thank my cousin Corey Kamari for serving in the Army during the Iraq campaign. Thank you for your service.
I'm saying thank you to my grandfather Gregory C. Holbrook for serving as a U.S. Air Force member during the Vietnam War. Thank you.
Thank you, Damien Dufour, for serving in the Army
and being a great football coach.
I would like to thank my grandfather for serving in the United States
Army from June 1959 to May 1962.
Thank you for serving in the Marines. The veteran that I would like to thank is my great-grandfather, Lorenzo Lozzi. He served as a medic in the World War II, 1942 to 1946. He served in North Africa as well as France. Thank you for serving.
To all the veterans that served for our country, especially my Pepe, Ned J. Buller, who served in World War II.
I would like to thank my grandfather for serving in the Navy. He worked in the Radio Shack.
I would like to thank my great-grandfather, Canio de Mayo. He served in the Army during World War II, and I am very thankful he fought for our freedom, although he was not a U.S. citizen.
I would like to say thank you to my grandfather, John LeBlanc, for serving our country.
And I would like to say thank you for Dave Entrott for serving our country. Happy Veterans Day!
Thank you to all the veterans who served for the U.S. Thanks to all of you for making our country a safe place to live.